Has Max Domi played his last game in a Montreal Canadiens uniform?
I think so. I hope not. I like Max Domi. I think he's a good player. I think the Canadiens can still use him. All the talk about Kotkaniemi and Suzuki being the top two centers moving forward. There's no guarantee they'll be able to play the same way they did during the 10 playoff games. I think, you got to remember Kotkaniemi was sent down to Laval this season in his sophomore season. Next season will be Suzuki's sophomore season. We've all heard of the sophomore jinx. We saw it with Kotkaniemi. I think Domi is a great insurance policy as another guy who can play center and play wing. Having said that, I believe the relationship between him and Claude Julien was fractured this season. I think frustration on both sides. Unless they can repair that, I don't think if I was a betting man, I'd say he's played his last game with the Canadiens. I think Marc Bergevin is going to try and move him. But depending what they get back in return, I can see the Canadiens missing him if they do get rid of him.
And I think that he's probably, his name is being tossed around as a possible trade, and he's probably asking for more money than Mr. Bergevin wants to give him, and unfortunately, there's a lot of these athletes are expecting raises without necessarily earning them, and they want it to be given to them. And I think Marc Bergevin is making a statement saying no. We have an issue with the money, and if he's not happy with it, he'll have to get his name out there and see what he can get in return for him.
I'm not exactly sure if we won't see Max Domi in a Habs uniform again. I think because his stock is so low right now that Marc Bergevin won't be able to get too much for him, and other teams know what's been going on with Max Domi and the Montreal Canadiens. But I think Marc Bergevin definitely sent a message loud and clear when he spoke to Tony Marinaro on TSN 690, saying that he was trying to play more of a skilled game. He got away from what he was doing beforehand. And I think, he said that if a player's not happy with their ice time, well, it's up to them to play better and earn more ice time. So I don't necessarily know if Bergevin has given up on him yet, but I think he wants him to improve in order to trade him and get a better asset in return from Max Domi.
And Max Domi prefers to play center. I think he's better at center. The Canes have basically said that also. Bergevin saying he fits in better at center, but he's not going to want to be a fourth line center. And if that's what the Canadiens have planned for him, and it certainly seems that way, and they're not going to want to pay whatever Domi's going to get, either through a contract or arbitration, for a fourth line center. So that's why I think he's on his way out. That's why I think he'll end up playing somewhere else. But again, I think Max Domi, he had 72 points or whatever it was the previous season. It's the most points any Canadiens player has had since Saku Koivu. So think about that. That's a long time ago. So the offensive ability is there. He was definitely frustrated this season for a number of reasons. Starting the playoffs as a fourth line center was a big reason for his frustration. And that's the last taste in his mouth. So that's why I think that he's going to ask to get out.
Yeah, Max Domi does not like to think of himself as a backup player of any kind. I think he would be a detriment to the team if the Canadiens do not get rid of him. And I don't disagree with you, Stu. It's possible that as good as Kotkaniemi or Suzuki was in the playoffs, either of them may falter during the regular season. And Max Domi does have more experience and he's older, but I think he's mentally checked out with this team.
It was a 10-game sample after a 5-month rest with no travel in between games. It was a totally different, and taking nothing away from Suzuki and Kotkaniemi, they played really, really well. But to do that for a 10-game period after a 5-month rest with no travel, etc., and trying to do that over an 82-game season are two different things. And they're both young guys. They're both, in my opinion, going to be able to do that. I think they're both going to be solid NHL players. I think Suzuki's going to be a star. But again, there's growing pains along the way, and I don't think the growing pains are all over yet for either of those two guys.
All right. Well, check out this week's full episode at hockeyinsideout.com or the Montreal Gazette.